That's a wrap for Super Bowl 59 live from here in this magnificent stadium, the New Orleans Caesars Superdome. Will Gavin, Brian T. Smith with you for NFL End Zone from talkSPORT. And look, I mean, you can hear it. My voice is absolutely shot. It might not have been the super tight, crazy, big ending game that we were expecting, but not all blowouts are made the same. I thought it was an incredibly fun game, and the Eagles deserved Super Bowl champions.
They were up 34-0. Will they absolutely smoked them? This Super Bowl is over at halftime, and you know I'm not going to say that I'm right, but we could look at this on paper and we could say the running back, the defensive coordinator, the wide receivers, the offensive line, almost every position favored Philadelphia. And the only reason I and you and everybody else was saying, okay, maybe the Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes and the magic and all of going for the three-peat, and they just had nothing. I mean, Taylor Swift was booed in this game. Travis Kelce's name was barely called out. Patrick Mahomes spoke to him after the game for talkSPORT. He blamed himself, and he said, this is completely on me, and this is going to haunt him for the rest of his career.
Travis Kelce became the player with the most receptions in Super Bowl history, overtaking Jerry Rice in this game, and yet he had two huge third down drops in this game, which completely killed the Chiefs with opportunities to get back into it. And look, I mean, we'll get more into the inside football of it all coming up shortly, but coming up on the show, we went inside the Eagles locker room. I still am sticky from head to toe from champagne, sweaty.
Will smells like I'm like, what does that smell? And I'm smelling cigar smoke.
So much
Philadelphia
cigar smoke.
Eagles cigar smoke. That's what you smell man.
So much cigar smoke. That's partially why my voice is gone, I think. But we're going to hear from some of the great and the good. Cooper DeJean, Saquon Barkley, so many of the defensive players talking about the impact of Brandon Graham, of Vic Fangio, so much great stuff from there. But let's start things off by watching how the final moments went down on our live stream here at talkSPORT End Zone.
The Philadelphia Eagles are your Super Bowl 59 champions. This stadium absolutely erupts. The sidelines empty, and the story of this season was not to be one of the Kansas City Chiefs making history. Less than 10 seconds remaining on the clock. Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts meet at midfield in a show of respect, and as we hit the zeros, the Philadelphia Eagles 40, the Kansas City Chiefs 22. The Eagles are your Super Bowl 59 champions. Finally, the lights go down. Those wristwatches light up in the green and white, and Fly Eagles Fly booms out around this stadium. Just a few short months ago, this team started their season 2-2. They finished last season losing 5 of their last 6 games and going out in the first round of the playoffs. The Philadelphia media, the fans, everyone questioning whether Nick Sirianni had the temperament, the coaching ability to take this team to another championship. And it culminates in the silver and green confetti firing out of the cannons here in New Orleans. The party has been going for at least 2 hours already, but now it can truly get started, as for the second time in their history, the Philadelphia Eagles can say they are Super Bowl champions.
Those were the final moments. That was the final call. All of my flowery words, Brian, that I threw out there. But the key to it is that the storyline here is that this is an Eagles team who lost 5 of their last 6 games last year before flaming out of the playoffs, who started this year 2-2 and had a city baying for their head coach's head. And yet they've lost 1 more game since then, and it's their name that's on those screens, and it's green and silver ticker tape that's on the field below us.
They were absolutely dominant. Well, and honestly, they were dominant throughout the season. This team has only lost 1 game since October. Saquon Barkley, best running back in the last 20 or 30 years. You have to go back to Eric Dickerson to find anyone comparable. Jalen Hurts, we said on talkSPORT End Zone, on the rundown, that Jalen Hurts, if he could play like NFC Championship Jalen Hurts, they were going to win the Super Bowl. And he was NFC Championship Jalen Hurts again. So back-to-back solid games by him, win Super Bowl MVP. But ultimately for me, and we can do some inside football, it was the defense. It was Vic Fangio, and we talked to him on media night, and he was grumpy, and that's what you want in a defensive coordinator. Patrick Mahomes, he was pressured the entire game. He never looked comfortable, and the only time he put up big numbers was garbage time. They were garbage stats. total tip of the cap to the entire Philadelphia Eagles organization and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie for not firing Nick Sirianni after week 4.
I will say that throw to Xavier Woods for that deep touchdown is one of the best throws I've ever seen live. It went 65 yards in the air. It was insane.
That was like old Mahomes. That's what Mahomes used to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, before we do go on that defense, I just want to say that on the Jalen Hurts thing, rushed for 72 yards in this game, a Super Bowl record breaking his own from previously, and they were dominant in this game despite the fact that Saquon Barkley, for having 25 carries, was only going at 2.3 yards a clip, was absolutely struggling on that side of the game. The Chiefs did brilliantly to contain him, but it was at the sacrifice
but they
of
had to give up
else.
something. That's exactly it. They had to give up something. And Jalen Hurts, I thought early on, got the passing game going to Devontae Smith, to A.J. Brown. Actually had one that was taken away because of a penalty. Look, this can't be emphasized enough either. The Philly fans. Like the Philly fans, the EAGLES chants took this stadium over. This was one of the loudest stadiums that I've ever heard before. The fans are going crazy. Chiefs fans should have left at halftime. I'm sure Taylor Swift did. It was a total domination by Philly, by the Eagles, and by their fans.
We had Charlie Smith on our call, kicker for the New Orleans Saints, member of the Irish IPP, and he I asked him, is this the loudest you've ever heard the stadium? And he laughed at me and was like, well, yeah, obviously. This is insane.
This is the Super Bowl.
One of the great moments was in the fourth quarter where the Eagles up 4-5 scores and the Eagles fans started doing the tomahawk chop when the Chiefs came out on the field. I was like, absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. So on that defensive side of the ball, and look, I think that the Chiefs have to take some responsibility here because they make the decision 6-7 weeks ago to move Joe Tooney from left guard to left tackle, and it was a key decision in that moment, and it genuinely was important for their season. But when you know the strength of the interior of this Eagles defense is that defensive line, and when you know how good they are at getting penetration up the middle, why you didn't make that switch back, why you didn't do something to make the change up front. That line was porous all day. The Eagles got after them all day. Josh Sweat was incredible. Milton Williams was incredible. Jalen Carter was an absolute game wrecker. And people like Jalix Hunt as well, who was sensational in this game. And he's had his 2 best games of his career the last 2 weeks. And honestly, you could just go through every single member of that defense and talk about how dominant they were.
Cooper DeJean, rookie. I mean, they completely had it figured out. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. And I loved how they never let anything up either, right? I mean, they attacked early. They were confident. It was so funny because this happens sometimes. We're in the media and you're trying to read into things, trying to get insight. And we were talking to one of our great producers and we were like, man, the Chiefs seem really, really confident. Mm-hmm. That changed after about 5 to 7 minutes in that game. And for me, it was watching Patrick Mahomes early be pressured and be troubled. You know what happened? I guarantee you Vic Fangio watched some tape from the Tampa Bay Bucks and Ndamukong Suh in that 31-9 game when Mahomes could never set his feet. He was having to throw off like that. That looked very similar to that. And Patrick Mahomes, this is fascinating to me, has now been blown out in 2 Super Bowls. So for all the greatness, and he is the current great one, but that doesn't happen to like the all-time greats. That's a fact.
That's tough.
Hey, Tom Brady, 7-3. 7-3. He had a period of almost 10 years where he wasn't in the Super Bowl. 7-3 overall. Patrick Mahomes is 3-2, and I just thought it was very interesting that Patrick Mahomes was blaming himself after the game, saying, "Hey, this is on me. I'll be back." But he said, "I have to learn from this because the way defenses are attacking me, it's going to force him to change his game."
And listen, Vic Fangio, prior to tonight, the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, was 0-8 against Andy Reid teams.
Oh, that's a crazy stat.
And yet, this is the big one, the one that mattered. And you mentioned Cooper DeJean. Let's hear the moment where, for all the talk of the Chiefs never turning the ball over, just twice in 8 weeks, Cooper DeJean made the game-changing play to intercept Patrick Mahomes and take it to the house.
Time for Mahomes to try and make some magic. A night where he's trying to establish his legacy. Steps his foot, has Samaje Perine, rushes out to the right-hand side, has a man down, throws it at the 39-yard line. Returning out to numbers 25, 20. Cooper DeJean down to the 10, down to the 5. Touchdown, Eagles! Cooper DeJean goes all the way across the formation, returns the ball, and the rookie has picked off the superstar.
I'm not one to big myself up, but I loved my call of that. I am annoyed I forgot it was his birthday. I am genuinely annoyed I forgot it was his birthday. And our producer afterwards came to me and was showing me his phone. It's like, it's his birthday. And on the pickup off the back, I was like, and on his birthday, what a party it's going to be and all that. But it was sensational. And it was just another example. I think Patrick Mahomes, the reason I blame him for this performance isn't that he was necessarily bad in, I mean, obviously garbage time down the stretch. He was just put in all of the worst positions to win by that offensive line, by what the defense were doing. But the thing is, he's made bad decisions.
He made some bad
which
throws.
Is rare.
He made
bad decisions.
Patrick Mahomes almost reverted back to where he was earlier in his career, and obviously he's been winning from the start, and AFC Championship after ANC Championship. But earlier in Patrick Mahomes' career, and I covered a lot of it, he was forcing things. He was a little more reckless. He was a little more wild. It was almost like he knew it was a Super Bowl. He knew he had to be on. He's feeling the pressure. He's never, the last 2 years, he's never really been able to link up with his wide receivers. Xavier Worthy was really the only one this year. DeAndre Hopkins got involved very late in the game again in garbage time. There's just been something off. We said this all year on this show. There's always been something off with the Chiefs. They never felt like they were going to dominate, and they didn't the entire year. They either got lucky, they squeaked by, they finally cleaned it up, and then they got their clocks clean in the Super Bowl.
Literally everything that could have gone wrong in this game went wrong for the Chiefs. I just remembered the DeAndre Hopkins drop, which at the time, from the position we were in up here in the gods, I saw the shirt number, and honestly, the 8 and the 9 looked similar. I saw the drop. I assumed it was Juju Smith-Schuster. When he then came up and it was DeAndre Hopkins, I was like, oh my God, what? That doesn't happen. We do have, we went to the Eagles locker room at the end of the game, and we spoke with some of the great and the good, and we'll bring you some highlights from that coming up shortly. But considering we spoke to the birthday boy himself, let's hear from the man who had that first interception, the man who really changed this game when the Chiefs needed to have something, Cooper DeJean.
What a way to celebrate Super Bowl champion and a sensation.
Oh, great! My birthday too. We're here with these guys. We're on the biggest stage. Crazy.
Talk to me about the interception.
I dropped a couple earlier in the season, so to make it happen on the biggest stage, it's awesome. Our defense worked so well together to be able to make it happen. So all credit to our defense and what they've done and what they've poured into me.
There was a moment where you might go out on the 10-yard line, and it's made that a little bit better. Turning it into a quick 6, unbelievable.
I was trying to find the end zone as best I could until I got to block. Awesome.
Still to us about the importance of Nick Banjo and Nick Sirianni for this organization.
Yeah, two great coaches. Amazing. I'm just happy to be here and be a part of this.
What does the birthday party look like tonight in NOLA?
What's that?
What does the birthday party look like tonight in NOLA?
I know we're going to have a big celebration. So I know.
22 years old, Brian. He is 22 years old today, and he's just made a game-changing play in the Super Bowl.
He's half as old as I am, or however that math works. It's incredible. And talking to him this week, he had a very interesting mix of total confidence, but also very, very calm. Like, how are you? I don't. That's what I don't understand about some of these athletes, and I'm so in awe. How are you that calm and that confident at 22 years old in the Super Bowl? Absolutely unbelievable.
He had a great game. Quinyon Mitchell had a great game, and what stands out about this Eagles team is the way it's been rebuilt from 2 years ago, and Howie Roseman, for everything else
who Philly fans also wanted to fire forever. How many times has Howie Roseman been fired? 100, 200, and now he's won 2 Super Bowls?
He's the real Super Bowl MVP.
He is.
In the same offseason, he's drafted 2 starting corners, which is almost impossible, and for the first time in NFL history, 2 free agents on the same team are first-team All-Pros, in Saquon Barkley and Zach Bourne. It's an off-season for the ages, which sets this team up to potentially be back here for the next 2-3 years. Imagine if we're talking about an Eagles three-peat in 3 years' time.
Here's what's crazy, and this is why I love sports. I love the NFL. It's just the stories, right? So Patrick Mahomes is going in the Hall of Fame. Patrick Mahomes could win 3 more Super Bowls. He might surpass Tom Brady one day as a GOAT. He's not right now. What about Jalen Hurts, right? So, like, Jalen Hurts was not good enough. He had the issues with A.J. Brown. You know, the passing game wasn't. Jalen Hurts has now been in 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years. Jalen Hurts just won Super Bowl MVP. Jalen Hurts won a national championship, only one of 3 quarterbacks that have ever done that, to win a national championship and a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was better than Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and Jalen Hurts was better in the last Super Bowl than Patrick Mahomes until like the last 5 minutes. The Eagles aren't going anywhere, Will. Saquon Barkley isn't going anywhere. They have a great offensive line, a great defense, a great general manager, a good coach. Like, we can accept that Nick Sirianni is a good head coach right now. This team is going to give you serious trouble in the NFC for years to come.
It was wonderful seeing the interactions between the players in the locker room. Howie Roseman coming round. We caught the moment that he first got together with Jalen Hurts
nice.
and lit his cigar for him. He walked around and he was being treated like the hero that he is. Jeffrey Lurie was in there and getting his flowers. But we saw Nick Sirianni when he first came out of his press conference coming into the room. And, you know, I've questioned Nick Sirianni's leadership at times.
We all have.
And I believed that he was like a Doug Peterson, where when the Eagles won the Super Bowl 8 years ago and he lost both of his coordinators, as much as Doug Peterson's clearly a good coach,
sure.
He's not a schemer, he's not a game planner in the way that those coordinators were for him. I think it is a huge difference that he's got two coordinators who have really game planned here well. I think Kellen Moore probably had his best ever game as a coordinator.
Saints might have picked up a good coach in Kellen Moore. Good timing for him. The thing about Sirianni that I've always been interested in is he is emotional, right? I mean, I remember a couple years ago, Chris Stapleton plays the national anthem. He has a tear going down his cheek. You saw post-game on the national broadcast, international broadcast. He picks up his kids. He's an emotional guy. And the one thing that I noticed, as soon as they won the Super Bowl, the Eagles won the Super Bowl tonight, you had so many like sincere hugs going on that sideline. This is a team, you know this, like Philly's different. There's so much pride, there's so much passion, but it goes both ways. It's either amazing or it's horrible. And for this team to be 2-2, Sirianni shaves his head. It feels like it all might fall apart after the way it ended the last season. No Jason Kelsey and crying. And they don't just pull it all together. They became the best team in the NFL, and you can tell this is a very, very tight Philly team.
Before we get on to just last mentions and last comments on this Super Bowl, let's go back into that Philly locker room and get some of the best moments from some of the players we spoke to and truly emotional conversations with these guys.
We've got Isaiah Rodgers joining us, Super Bowl champion. How does that feel, sir?
Hey, it's a blessing, man. I could have been here without my kids, my lady, God, my family. Like, this team, I'm just happy to be here, man.
Look, from your perspective, that defensive performance, just dominating the Chiefs from moment one.
Hey, we came out here with one thing on our mind, just do what we need to do to win this game. And we put on a goddamn show today, so I'm happy for these guys, man.
How special is Vic Fangio and what you've managed to do with that defense?
Mastermind. That's one word for him, mastermind, man. He told us everything they were going to do, and we went out there and put on a show. Hell of a coach.
How wild is it to think that just 3 short months ago at 2-2, some people were calling for Nick Sirianni's head?
The outside doubted us, but we already knew what time it was, man. We locked in, and we world champs, man. We world champs.
Tristan McCollum, Super Bowl champion.
Man, I don't even know what to think, man. I feel like it still ain't set in. Like, it's crazy. We the best in the world.
Being on that sideline, as the ticker tape rains down, as the Gatorade goes over Nick Sirianni's head, like, could you imagine being here 3 months ago when you were sat at 2-2?
You know, I knew we had the team to do it. You know, this team, best team I ever been on. So I knew we had the opportunity to do it. We just had to put the little things together, and it's crazy how we came this far.
How wild is it that Howie Roseman drafts those two guys at the top of the draft, signs Zach Bourne, signs Saquon Barkley, first ever signed 2 first-team All-Pros in the same season? Whoa!
Yeah! Hey, Howie's the GOAT GM. He signs the best players to come and win championships. He don't miss.
Talk to us about Coach Sirianni, what he's done to lead this team.
Man, no. You know, everyone wanted to have their doubts, you know, early in the season, you know, how we ended last season, but Nick's a great coach. He's a player's coach. He knows how to get the team going, and, you know, the record speaks for itself.
And what about the people of Philadelphia? This building was rocking tonight.
I'm fully prepared that when we go back to Philly, there ain't even gonna be a city no more. They tearing it down, man. The Philly fans crazy. We did this for them. Man, we just happy to be here.
You can feel the energy in here right now, man. It's crazy. I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on for real.
Seriously, the way that you dominated, the way that pass rush just picked apart the Chiefs' offensive line, it couldn't have gone better for you.
Nah, at a certain point, I was just like, it's just that day. It's just that night. Can't nothing go wrong for us. And it showed up. We just rushed together, and we made the opportunities count.
And I want to talk to you about a man who got out there and made big plays late on in Brandon Graham. How much he meant to you, how much he meant to this organization?
Oh, BG, man, he pretty much raised me in this league, man. It wasn't the best earlier on in my career, man, but he just kept pushing me. And I owe him everything, man. I owe him everything, man. He just been so supportive the whole time. And I'm here because of it, for sure.
And one thing, if you think back to 2-2, people were calling for Nick Sirianni's head, and now you're here and you're a Super Bowl champion. What does that say about Nick Sirianni and this organization?
Man, Nick didn't change at all. You wouldn't even tell he was flustered or anything. He just stuck to what he knew, what was real, what was true, connected with the team, and man, and look at it.
Milton Williams, sensational defensive tackle of the Philadelphia Eagles and Super Bowl champion.
Super Bowl champ.
How does it feel, man?
This is the best feeling in the world. All the work we put in, man. Close knit of our team, man. We just put our head down and grind all year. And this is the result.
What about how dominant that defensive line was? You pushed those Chiefs about all day long.
Man, we've been saying all week, it ain't got to be close. We know the dogs we got up front. We play for each other. We work together all year long. We bust our butt all year long. They can't never take it away from us, man. We're the best in the world.
And talk to us about the importance of Brandon Graham to this organization.
And he means everything to this organization. Without him, I wouldn't be in this position. You know, just learning from him, taking tips from him. We wanted this for him for sure. And I'm glad he got to finish it off with a bang.
Super Bowl champion, how does that feel?
Words can't describe. It's amazing. I'm happy to be here, partying with my guys, having fun.
One for Nick Sirianni.
Coach Sirianni's the best. He's the glue. He's a leader. He set the tone from start to finish. He took a lot of slack throughout the year. Can you say now? Real champ. Got the most wins, the winningest coach, and Super Bowl champ.
It's international player pathway superstar. Oh, and Super Bowl champion Jordan Mailata. How does that sound?
I don't even know how to feel. I just cut off my tape. Just got done doing media. I come in here. It's a cigar. It's a cigar, bro. Can't take that away from us, man.
As a guy who the story's been told so many times, coming from your rugby background, never taking a snap of football before you got here, to a Super Bowl champion, how wild is that?
Wild. Wild, brother. I think it's hard, man. I think we always want to focus on the end goal, and if you just take it one step at a time, and you can complete a lot, but man, it's such a surreal feeling. I'll be honest, I don't know how to describe it.
To be a team that's gone from 2-2, when people were calling for Nick Sirianni's head just 3 months ago, to Nick Sirianni taking us to the Super Bowl championship. Talk about him as a head coach.
I mean, what are they going to say now? You got to give him his flowers. But we don't listen to whatever anybody says outside that building. We know the coach that we have in Nick Sirianni. And this is proof in the pudding. Oh, that flower is blooming right now. That flower is blooming.
Speaking to the Eagles in that Philadelphia Eagles locker room, Jordan Mailata, Saquon Barkley giving us time. I had a very emotional interaction with Brandon Graham, who I remember watching him going to see Andy Reid after they lost to the Chiefs 2 years ago, and we were in that hallway waiting to go in the locker room, and those two embraced and they talked, and it was like seeing these two old football heads coming together and really kind of commiserating and celebrating, and so to see him on the flip side of it was wonderful.
That's nice.
2 Super Bowls for him. Rides off into the sunset at the very top of his game. Probably Hall of Very Good rather than Hall of Fame. But he'll be in the Philly Ring of Fame in a heartbeat, and is an absolute sensation within that city. Let's just mention the event itself, though, because for all the football and the fact that it was a blowout and not one of the close, great games out of the last decade, this city has been sensational all week.
The real MVP of Super Bowl.
It's not Howie Roseman.
It's not Jalen Hurts. It's definitely not Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. It was the city of New Orleans, right? And
unbelievable.
I'm so proud of New Orleans. I'm from here originally.
12 years. Why has it taken 12 years?
It should be, and I know someone said every 5 years, every 3 years, every 2 years. It's such an incredible host city. The fact you can walk everywhere. It was incredibly safe this entire week. The security was fantastic. And I will say, oftentimes, like you go to a concert, you go to a big event, they increase security and it takes you 5 hours to get in. We sailed into here. It was still very secure. but we sailed into here. Everything was very efficiently run. I thought the Superdome, I have to replace organs because there was so much bass coming from the speakers.
You should have been that Eagles locker room. At one point when we were interviewing one of the defensive backs, literally in one question it went off and I jumped. He thought it was funny. Thanks.
New Orleans was absolutely fantastic. The food, the people, the hospitality. The game was a blowout. The Superdome and New Orleans were just absolutely perfect hosts, Will.
It was the build-up for me. It was
a fun week.
The Nola Strong stuff before the game. Lady Gaga performing on Bourbon Street
great.
with Tom Brady and all those guys around them with Roger Goodell or the combination of the LAFD stuff and the Nola Strong stuff. And then when they came out and they did that huge performance to kick off, before we got to...
That was actually my favorite highlight.
Wasn't it unbelievable?
The brass band and I think it was Southern. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and the marching bands and the outfits, and they brought a flair of Mardi Gras.
And then Taylor Swift was booed. It was such a perfect Super Bowl because Taylor Swift was booed. Oh, I love that so much.
The Taylor Swift little look to her right. I think it was Ice Spice who was sat next to her. I'm looking for confirmation from the younger people in our crew. The little look to the side to Ice Spice when she was booed almost out of this building.
It was seriously like,
very funny.
do you guys know who I am? And I'm like, yeah, your team's getting destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles, and nobody cares about you right now.
I imagine that the poles are greased, that Bourbon Street is going wild right now, Market Street.
We're going to go find out.
All down there. You might be going to find out. I'm going to bed. It's been an unbelievable week. Thank you, Brian, for all that you've done. Thanks to all the team who are here who've done an unbelievable job. And it just keeps rolling.
It does.
I've already lined up our first interview for next week.
Wins the combine, wins the draft, wins free agency. And we've had so much covered at talksport.com. We've seen this channel grow and seriously shout out to all the producers, the editors, all the writers, because that's the thing too, like we're different because we're doing this in London and the United States at the same time. We're crossing continents, building all this stuff up, and to be able to cover this entire season and just a fantastic Super Bowl week. This has been a lot of fun for me, Will.
So come back for Mina Kimes later this week. She's promised she'll come on via Zoom after not being able to come on with us on Radio Row. And there's going to be so much content from Radio Row still to come. We had so many interviews which are timeless, where we talk to players about their teams, about looking forward, about the off-season. So there's still so much content to come from New Orleans. So keep it locked to the channel. Keep it locked to talkSPORT as well. We'll be there, me, Brian, all the boys. Thank you so much for tuning in this season. But there is no off-season in the NFL, and we'll be back in a couple of days' time.